Who's Your Jedi here with another review for you. This time I'm talking the Riverdale episode, The Ides of March. And this was frankly just kind of an alright episode. The whole subplot with Cheryl and Tony and Hermosa was frankly pretty unimpressive. Honestly, it kind of feels like one of those moments where it's just like, okay, we've kind of neglected her for most of the season. We need to give Tony something to do, which we've kind of got last episode. But okay. I mean, it is something interesting. And it did feed into the subplot with Hiram and Veronica and what's going on there. I do like how they do show clearly in a nice way that no, this is not some elaborate plan of Hiram. He really is having a serious medical issue. And frankly, it does make sense. Faking weakness is not really in the Hiram Lodge game plan. It's not in his playbook. Hiram detests weakness. And Veronica, as much as she doesn't like him and has good reason to dislike her father, it's true, it's pretty clear the apple did not fall very far from the tree. She understands him far better than even his wife and her half-sister, that, throwing down the gauntlet, issuing him a challenge, directly challenging him, that's what gets Hiram fired up. Of course, this does lead to some weirdness in the episode with Hiram going and working out at Archie's gym, a kid who he has repeatedly tried to have murdered, whose dad he tried to have killed also more than once. And Archie ends up going to the guy for advice. It's such a weird thing. You would really think Archie would want to, as much as possible, avoid the man who has tried to repeatedly kill him. But to be fair, though, he does kind of have that moment where he's a little pointed with Hiram. It's like, yeah, don't forget the check, Mr. Lodge. I guess that's about as good as we're going to get. And I do sort of like that, in spite of all of that, Hiram actually does give Archie good and sincere advice. The dynamic between these two is very weird right now. It's sort of like, okay, we're just gonna pretend the past didn't happen. We don't really like each other, but we both care about Veronica, so we're just gonna be coolly neutral towards each other. And again, this is also feeding into a few episodes back when Archie actually asked Hiram for help. Again, I can't imagine somebody who has repeatedly tried to kill me and me going to them and asking for their help. That's just TV drama logic, the writers on Riverdale really don't like to remember stuff that happened a couple of weeks or a couple of seasons back, and that is one of the reoccurring teeth-gnashing things for fans, but the show is what it is. Let's see, what else do we have to deal with this episode? Of course, we've got all the Stonewall prep stuff with the Stonewallers and all trying to frame Jughead for plagiarism and all of this nonsense, blackmailing him with the sex tape. Again, in this day and age, is a sex tape really that big of a deal? I mean, I can understand, of course, why people would be enormously upset by that. It's a tremendous invasion of one's privacy on the most intimate of levels. But a society, I think, has really kind of taken it happens kind of attitude towards this things. And I've even seen people saying things like, well, yeah, in dating this day and age, of course you kind of have to send nudes to other people. It's like, no, that's a really terrible idea. The internet is forever. But that's just my opinion on things. And I like how Betty even points it out. It's like, I'm the daughter of a known serial killer. People are going to spend the rest of my life looking at me with an arched eyebrow. You think a sex tape really means anything to me? And once again, this is a thing that could have totally been avoided if Jughead had just bothered to talk to her about the situation. I like how Brett does really point out, and he is correct in this, it's just that Jughead is an incurable romantic. You know, he really believes in throwing himself, you know, in front of Betty if it will spare her pain, even as we have seen before. You know, that's not really the best way to handle his relationship with Betty. I kind of get why FP was pissed, but you know, this is definitely one of those moments where Jughead really needs to pull his dad aside later and explain what was going on. Uh, but in all fairness, yeah, Jughead could have fought and aired a lot of dirty laundry at Stonewall Prep, but you really think they wouldn't have just resented that and found some other way to have him kicked out later? Jughead even said, the system's rigged. The system is just not going to give him a fair chance no matter what he does. But speaking of rig, of course, we finally come full circle around to the big what the hell moment from the start of the season. And I really gotta wonder if this is not all an enormous long con on the part of Jughead. And they even frame it like this is the first time Archie, Betty, Jughead, and Veronica have really spent much time together in the first time. And then at the party, we get that scene with Brett and Donna and Joan and the black guy whose name I forget. Sort of the evil, rich, preppy version of them. And you have to imagine those guys were watching from the woods when all of this was going on, because there's no way they wouldn't want to get like, oh my god, Betty murdered Jughead, that's way too good of blackmail material not to get. Or something like that. Like something was going to happen, and these guys would want to be able to see that and, you know, future blackmail proof, evidence or whatever. Of course, the only head scratcher on this is the whole Evelyn's second trigger word that makes Betty go nutso. But you could easily say that just, well, maybe that happened, but you know, Betty has found a way around it or whatever, and she just pretended. Still, how would they have even known about that thing to begin with? Again, this is just a theory, and normally I don't do theory crafting. I admit that this theory definitely has some holes in it, but still, this really does feel like a long con on the part of Jughead. You know, he has come up with a plan, and again, the way they frame it, the Riverdale guys versus the 4 Stonewall people, my TV viewer fans' instincts tell me this is something that is set up because, yeah. Alright guys, that's really all I have for you this time around. As always, please comment, rate, and subscribe. Of course, follow me on Twitter at HoosierJedi, and until next time, take care and have a good one.